Any leadership that does not fight for your collective and individual ability to compete, which means equitable and equal representation of jobs, economics, education, housing, law, medical treatment, entertainment, religion, sex, defense, and protection, as stated by your cries, is a leadership that will lead you or keep you in bondage. Racism is still alive in America. Death is better than bondage. Peace, blessings, and black love. This is OOOOOWWWTT coming to you black at it again. And this video, this is just an audio, so you don't have to look at the screen. This is Barbara Sizemore, and she's basically explaining the same thing that I or many others always explain, that black America has to get their act together. She's basically just running down the educational system, the economics, and how black America in her times didn't understand what their mission objective was, or was not brave enough to follow through on their mission objective. Again, a lot of black Americans agree in theory that this is how it's done. So as long as we are sitting at a table strategizing, talking about it, we, for the most part, we have no issue with that. We're all on board. Our issue is making it become real life. When I tell you that we, the younger generations, younger Gen X's, we are going to have to actually be the spearheaders of this. The second wave Gen X's, we're going to have to be the spearhead of this, because anybody that's born before us, they drank the Kool-Aid. They're never going to raise their hand. They're not going to do anything. So we can't rely on them. That's your boomers and your first wave Gen X's. We can't rely on them. And as you can see, the majority of them are dying off, and the pressure's starting to ramp back up. It's like they're too scared to do anything. I thought we got rid of this back when I was a kid. I didn't know that I never in my life that I think that we were going to have to relive segregation in my lifetime. I thought once it was passed, it was no, it was in sleeper mode, and it remained in sleeper mode, not because of the boomer generation, not because of the civil rights generation. It remained in sleeper mode primarily because of the silent generation and your warrior class. So there was two different things that was going on at that time. You people, you coward class, y'all are dying out. I'm gonna do another video about guys talking about the gang and how many of the younger generation, they no longer want to be a part of the gang. They are a little bit more revolutionary, and how they, who are ex-gang members, are now renouncing the gang and trying to do certain things to end gang culture. I'm gonna do that in a separate video. This is not that video. This video is about Barbara Sizemore and how she's explaining that black folks in America just don't get it. Roll the tape.
What's happening to our children in public schools. Now, most of the time when I come over here, that's what I talk to you about, because that's really where my life is centered. But it occurred to me that Alton's been in this struggle, and I'm very concerned about how we're progressing in it. So I thought a lot about it, sisters and brothers, and titled what I want to share with you tonight called Black People Still Don't Get It. 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 For some time now, I have been trying to get the idea over that black people must take charge of their lives and those of their children. We can't leave this to other people to do because they're not going to do it. And we cannot sit around wringing our hands and shaking our heads and talking. It's getting late, brothers and sisters, especially for our children. Now, when it gets to the point that the way we live is destructive and leads to our extermination, then we have to think about what has happened to our culture. When it gets to the point that the way we live is destructive and leads to our extermination, then we have to think about what has happened to our culture. When it gets to the point that the way we live is destructive and leads to our extermination, then we have to think about what has happened to our culture. And we need to take a long, serious look at our condition now. If culture is the sum total of artifacts which any group accumulates in its struggle for survival and autonomy, then it's dynamic because it's a struggle. It's not static. It doesn't stand still and never change. It changes with the condition. Okay? Because as you try to survive and to be self-autonomous and the conditions change that keep you from doing that, you change in order to combat those conditions. Am I making sense to you? Okay. Which any group accumulates in its struggle for survival and autonomy, then it's dynamic because it's a struggle. It's not static. It doesn't stand still and never change. It changes with the condition. Okay? Because as you try to survive and to be self-autonomous and the conditions change that keep you from doing that, you change in order to combat those conditions. Which any group accumulates in its struggle for survival and autonomy, then it's dynamic because it's a struggle. It's not static. It doesn't stand still and never change. It changes with the condition. Okay? Because as you try to survive and to be self-autonomous and the conditions change that keep you from doing that, you change in order to combat those conditions. 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 Now, what is survival? I mean, you know what? Survival means that the group has to do at least three things. One, the group has to see that each individual member keeps himself or herself in good enough mental, moral, spiritual, and physical health long enough to reproduce that self and then take care of whatever you reproduce. That's the least. If you don't do that, the group dies. It's gone. Okay. So that's what survival means. In order to be self-autonomous, it means that the group has to have within its control the means to assure its survival.
Yeah. All right.
You can't depend on nobody else to do that.
All right.
That's not going to happen. That's not the way the world works. Now, what are the chief obstacles to survival? What are the chief obstacles to survival? What are the chief obstacles to survival? Let's just be real. What are they? One is nature. You got to have within the means of the group some way for the group to survive earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. Right? So nature is one. Other men and women who might want to take your land, water, means of survival. And yourself. You can't become no cotton-picking drug addict, alcoholic, kill yourself. Those are the obstacles. One is nature. You got to have within the means of the group some way for the group to survive earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. Right? So nature is one. Other men and women who might want to take your land, water, means of survival, and yourself. You can't become no cotton-picking drug addict, alcoholic, kill yourself. Those are the obstacles. One is nature. You got to have within the means of the group some way for the group to survive earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. Right? So nature is one. Other men and women who might want to take your land, water, means of survival, and yourself. You can't become no cotton-picking drug addict, alcoholic, kill yourself. Those are the obstacles. One is nature. You got to have within the means of the group some way for the group to survive earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. Right? So nature is one. Other men and women who might want to take your land, water, means of survival, and yourself. You can't become no cotton-picking drug addict, alcoholic, kill yourself. Those are the obstacles. The culture that we pass down from generation to generation is supposed to help the group to survive and to be self-autonomous. The major way that we pass this culture on is through what? Groups. Family, church, school, organizations like this. Those are the means. Okay, now, unfortunately for us, we live in a country where the overriding values of the country are against us. For instance, these overriding values put in the positions of privilege people who are white, people who are male, and people who are wealthy. And these three groups dominate the society. So when we talk about teaching our children instrumental values like equality, liberty, fraternity, etc., we are talking about ordering those values under the institutional values of race, gender, and wealth. So that more white people get equality, liberty, and fraternity than black people, more men get equality, liberty, and fraternity than women, and more wealthy people get equality, liberty, and fraternity than poor people. You get it?
All right.
All right. It doesn't do enough then, ladies and gentlemen, for us to teach our children about the instrumental values, if we don't teach them the impact of the institutional values on the distribution of the latter. Otherwise, our kids don't get the full message and don't know how to behave. On March 28, 1947, when I was looking for my first job, affirmative action was for white people. Now, just because we didn't call it that then, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't mean it wasn't. And now that it's our turn to have affirmative action, it's suddenly no turns. It's always our turn, right? It's always white people's turn for affirmative action. Nobody else gets a turn. So much for taking turns. But isn't that what we teach for 2 weeks in kindergarten? Oh, the teacher tells you, your child has to learn to take a turn. We teach him to take a turn in kindergarten, take a turn in first grade, take a turn in second grade, wait your turn in third grade, don't butt in fourth grade, stay in line in fifth grade. When you get to be an adult, you stand and queue up at the cashier. Take your turn, wait your turn. But don't nobody take no turns in this country. It's always the white man's turn. It's always the rich man's turn. It's always their turn.
All right.
So much for taking turns. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, which legalized Jim Crow. And the overt racism that we knew as Jim Crow was forbidden. And most Negroes, now calling themselves black, thought the problem was solved. Black folks just didn't get it. We just didn't get it. We thought that the problem was segregation. But segregation was a symbol of the problem. The problem was this institutional value system of race, gender, and wealth. That's the problem. And ladies and gentlemen, it still is. The United States is not a democracy yet. It's trying to be, trying to be. And I always tell my students when they say, I'm trying to do it, Miss Sizemore, I say, come here. And I say, I'm trying to hit you. I'm trying to hit you, right? I'm trying to hit you. And then when I finish, I said, did I hit you? And he said, no. I said, so much for trying. But the United States is a capitalist country. It is that. Now, if it can be a democracy within the parameters prescribed by the capitalist paradigm, it does it. But when it can't, it won't. The basic premise of capitalism is to make a profit by any means necessary. And the unit of measure is the United States dollar. And ladies and gentlemen, it is taboo to teach this to your children. When I say taboo, I mean it's forbidden. For instance, if anybody gets up in front of a class and tries to teach the children about capitalism and how to be a capitalist, they are immediately labeled socialist or communist and run out of the room. Right? It's a taboo. Don't you think that's strange? That in a capitalist country, we cannot teach our children to be capitalists? Oh, think about it. Because you see, in a capitalist country, you are either a capitalist or you are a victim. There's no in-betweens. There's no in-betweens. You either play the game here or you're a victim of it. Now you have to make a choice. Of course, you can always leave the country. That's another choice. Right? Now, capitalism demands competition, selfishness, and mean-spiritedness. It demands it. But what do they teach your children in school? Be cooperative. Be cooperative. Take your turn. Don't fight. Don't cheat. Now, everybody engaged in capitalism knows that the motto is win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Now, everybody engaged in capitalism knows that the motto is win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Now, everybody engaged in capitalism knows that the motto is win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. And what I'm trying to explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the real world that our children live in, not the ideal one that we want them to live in, not this wonderful world that we pray that will come here one day, but the real world that they have to live in. You want to know why they're acting so crazy? You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there. You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there. You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there. You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there. 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 We fade away on them somewhere around about 9th grade. We start talking about, I can't control him. I can't do nothing with him. Get out of my house if you don't do what I tell you to do. And we abandon them to the mean streets and then cry because they get murdered. We start talking about, I can't control him. I can't do nothing with him. Get out of my house if you don't do what I tell you to do. And we abandon them to the mean streets and then cry because they get murdered. We start talking about, I can't control him. I can't do nothing with him. Get out of my house if you don't do what I tell you to do. And we abandon them to the mean streets and then cry because they get murdered. Capitalism is not compatible with equality. It is not compatible with equity. It is not compatible with Christianity, no matter how hard we try. The struggle for survival in the United States is the handling of this never-ending tension between the institutional values of race, gender, and wealth, which give undue and unearned privileges and advantages to some so that others cannot compete on an equal basis for the resources of this country. This is the game. This is the game, ladies and gentlemen. As Alton told you, politics is the management of the conflict which occurs when groups war over the resources. Resources include money, land. Politics is just the passing around of the resources. If you don't have the resources, as Alton told you, you're not in the game. Politics is just the passing around of the resources. If you don't have the resources, as Alton told you, you're not in the game. Politics is just the passing around of the resources. If you don't have the resources, as Alton told you, you're not in the game. Politics is just the passing around of the resources. If you don't have the resources, as Alton told you, you're not in the game. Black people just don't get it. 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 Those who are at the bottom form a group which is bound by its cultural artifacts. That's language, religion, tradition, art, music, style, values. And these form a bond of cohesion which, if nourished, does become nationalism. But it has to be nourished. And it has to be nourished by the group. How do we do that? Family, church, school, organization, institutions. Okay. When it becomes nationalistic, then the group is strong enough to create an economic niche in which the people can slide to make a living. But under capitalism, you must be a producer. You cannot continue to be consumers. But under capitalism, you must be a producer. You cannot continue to be consumers. But under capitalism, you must be a producer. You cannot continue to be consumers. African Americans spend more money than, well, there's one group that spends more money than us. We spend. Ladies and gentlemen, this means we do have money. We spend it, right? So if you got money to spend, you do have money. We say we don't have any money, but funny enough, we got money to buy all of these clothes and all of these cars and all these rings. I see brothers and sisters with 9 pounds of gold hanging around them, talking about they ain't got no money. Well, I guess not if it's all on plastic. Little brother came to me and he told me, he said, all this old capitalism crap you talking about, he said, you ought to shut up because we don't want to be engaged in capitalism. I said, show me your wallet. So he took out his wallet. I said, ain't no money in it. He said, no. I said, well, how you live? Where you live? Because I got to pay rent where I live. Where you live at? You don't have to pay no rent. What do you eat? Because every time I go to the Jewel, they want long green pictures of dead presidents. I mean, hey, man, be real. You can't live in the United States of America without any money. I don't know a problem that our people have that would not be solved by more money. Now, you see me afterwards. You see me afterwards if you got a problem that money won't solve, because I want to know about it, because I'm making a list of them.
All right.
Because in a capitalist country, you see, that's the whole gig.
That's right.
That's the whole gig. The whole gig is to make everything cost money. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, everything is for sale.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Everything. That's Justin Jackson.
Now, if you want to change things around here, I'm with you. I'm for you. But in the meantime, while you changing, you got to eat. Because if you don't eat, you're going to be one dead revolutionary.
All right.
So let's be real. I'm trying to stick to what's real, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's this tension between what's real and what's ideal that's killing our kids because they don't know how to deal. Trying to stick to what's real, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's this tension between what's real and what's ideal that's killing our kids because they don't know how to deal. Trying to stick to what's real, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's this tension between what's real and what's ideal that's killing our kids because they don't know how to deal. I've been away from Chicago for 20 years. I came back 2 years ago. I walked down, I couldn't believe what I was seeing on 47th Street. The stores are all owned by Arabs and Koreans. These were stores that used to be owned by black people. Now none of them are. They work from dawn to sunset. They're in these stores all day long, selling us what we need. They have their families working in there. They don't hire nobody. Black people out there picketing, talking about they don't hire no black people. Ain't nobody in there. Everybody's related. They're all family. I said, how you gonna get a job in there? You're not Korean, fool.
That's right.
You gotta be in their family to work there.
That's right.
When the Nation of Islam began buying up 79th Street in Chicago in the 1960s, I thought we finally had gotten it. But this effort was lost in the usual ego struggles of African American men.
All right.
Ego struggles have spoiled more freedom efforts in my lifetime than I would care to stand up here and talk to you about.
Thank you very much.
In fact, I have been involved in so many that now I just refuse to join another movement. We must learn to work together as a group. Alton talked to us about that tonight. I won't repeat it because he talked to us about that. We must learn to do this, ladies and gentlemen, because everybody does it if they get out of poverty in this country. They work together as a group. They work together as a group. If we are to survive and be autonomous in the United States, we must change our way of looking at living. Our culture is no longer functional because we've lost so much of the culture that used to save us. Our children are killing each other and us because we are not paying attention to what is happening to them. We must change our way of looking at living. Our culture is no longer functional because we've lost so much of the culture that used to save us. Our children are killing each other and us because we are not paying attention to what is happening to them. We must change our way of looking at living. Our culture is no longer functional because we've lost so much of the culture that used to save us. Our children are killing each other and us because we are not paying attention to what is happening to them. Alton made reference to the prisons. That's the second part of the gross national product. In every state, they are building these prisons to put our people in order to get us out of the labor market and then to exploit us for providing jobs for them. Either way you look at it, going into the drug industry to try to be a businessman at the lower end where you get killed, or going to prison, we're still, once again, exploited, enslaved, used for others to become wealthy so they can be rich. We spend a lot of time being resentful of Koreans and Hispanic people and Arabs who are trying to use this system the way that we should be using it. Now, why don't we do this? Let's look at that for a minute.
All right.
You remember when I told you about we tell our kids all the time in school, take a turn, but in the real world you don't take a turn? Okay. We also teach our kids that there's something wrong with being separate. As soon as we get a little money, we want to be as close to white people as we can get. We want to live in their neighborhoods. We want to go to their schools. We want to marry them. We just got the problem, right? We just have the problem. We don't like us, right? We don't like us. We also teach our kids that there's something wrong with being separate. As soon as we get a little money, we want to be as close to white people as we can get. We want to live in their neighborhoods. We want to go to their schools. We want to marry them. We just got the problem, right? We just have the problem. We don't like us, right? We don't like us. We also teach our kids that there's something wrong with being separate. As soon as we get a little money, we want to be as close to white people as we can get. We want to live in their neighborhoods. We want to go to their schools. We want to marry them. We just got the problem, right? We just have the problem. We don't like us, right? We don't like us. We also teach our kids that there's something wrong with being separate. As soon as we get a little money, we want to be as close to white people as we can get. We want to live in their neighborhoods. We want to go to their schools. We want to marry them. We just got the problem, right? We just have the problem. We don't like us, right? We don't like us. That's a big problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big problem. As soon as we get a little bit of money, we want to run away from us. Now, what do other groups do? They run together. And the first stage of that inclusion model is called separatism. And they come together because they have a common culture that saves them from these obstacles. We need to think about being separate. We need to stop being afraid of nationalism, to think about being separate. We need to stop being afraid of nationalism, to think about being separate. We need to stop being afraid of nationalism, because we're afraid of it.
All right.
We're afraid of it. And our enemies want us to stay afraid.
That's it. All right.
Because next to God, nationalism is the most powerful organizing force that man knows.
All right.
The most powerful is God. And if you don't believe me, look at the fundamentalist right, how they are driving abortion out of this country without changing the law. How are they doing it? Killing doctors. Shooting them. See, that's what a powerful dynamic will do for you. If we had a powerful God dynamic, our kids wouldn't be killing each other. They might be killing somebody else, but it wouldn't be each other.
That's it.
But we don't have that. We don't have a powerful God dynamic. We used to, but we don't more. Next to that is nationalism. That's the next most powerful dynamic you have for organizing people.
All right.
Now, at one time, we had a model, and that was the Nation of Islam. And they were using it to death, but ego killed it. In her paper, Whiteness as Property, Harvard Law Review, June 1993, Cheryl I. Harris argues that whiteness is built on both exclusion and racial subjugation. And this is how she says it's used. Race has not only been constructed as race, but also as a privilege. That's why we got this hair problem. Today in the United States, race is determined by visibility and reputation, because there are over 1 million African Americans passing for white every day. And if you make friends with some of them, they will give you some powerful bits of information about the other folks that help you. And remember what Alton told you, information is power, right? I seek them out at any institution I go to. I try to see if I can find out who's passing. Now, you can't tell on them now. That ain't the point. I want the information. Tell me what these doctors do in this hospital when they come in here. Tell me how they treat us when we come in here, because I want to know before I bring my mama over here.
All right.
And they'll tell you. That's if you don't turn them in. All right? Okay. Harris argues that the decision to pass as white was not a choice, if by that word one means voluntariness or lack of compulsion. She says that the fact of race subordination was coercive and circumscribed the liberty to self-define. In other words, because you are black, your ability to define yourself is limited in this. And passing for white frees you of that limitation. So she says if that is true and you want to define who you are, then it might not be voluntary. Now, my interaction with some of these people is that they passing for white in order to what? Survive and have self-autonomy. Okay? Now let's look at the real world that makes you want to do that. And then let's think about those of us who can't if we wanted to. I mean, you think I'd get away with it? I go out and say, I'm passing for white. I don't think so. Self-determination of identity is not a right for us. It's not a right for us, but it's a privilege for white people, right? So the effect of protecting whiteness at law was to devalue those who were not white by coercing them to deny their identity. So I straighten my hair, I whiten my skin, I cut off my nose, I fix my lips, I cover up my heels and wear a girdle on my butt so I can look what? White. Because that's the identity that I want. Now this is the crux of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, for our children. And we have chosen, and I say chosen because we didn't have to do this, we have chosen to destroy the main weapon for survival, which is our identity. And we have chosen, and I say chosen because we didn't have to do this, we have chosen to destroy the main weapon for survival, which is our identity. And we have chosen, and I say chosen because we didn't have to do this, we have chosen to destroy the main weapon for survival, which is our identity. And this has posed a severe problem for us and for our children. Because if I don't like who I am, I'm hardly gonna raise a child who does. Because my child is a mirror of me.
All right. All right.
The way out is through mobilization of the group to struggle for the survival of the individual.
All right.
And you have to understand that black folks just don't get it.
All right.
I'm not giving up my individual right to sacrifice for the group. That's not what it's all about. Hey, the problem with that is the Constitution gives you individual rights, but you can only protect them as a group. The problem with that is the Constitution gives you individual rights, but you can only protect them as a group. The problem with that is the Constitution gives you individual rights, but you can only protect them as a group.
All right.
See, that's the problem.
All right. All right.
That's the problem. To survive, the group must ensure that each individual member is able to take care of himself or herself, reproduce himself or herself, and take care of the progeny. And we are losing the group function. It doesn't matter where. We're losing it in the family. We're losing it in the church. We're certainly losing it in the school. We're losing it in the community. We're losing it in our institutions. Our families are disrupted. Only 26% of all African American children live with both parents. Our churches are predominantly female, 80%. Our schools are mostly dysfunctional. Children do not learn anything in them. Our schools are mostly dysfunctional. Children do not learn anything in them. Our schools are mostly dysfunctional. Children do not learn anything in them. Our schools are mostly dysfunctional. Children do not learn anything in them. And our communities are disorganized. No leadership, no resources, no support. Black people still don't get it. We don't get it. We just don't get it. That it's the group function that's going to carry us through. It's the group function. Individual members working together as a group in order to take care of their own children, take care of their own poor and elderly, take care of their own disorganized and mentally ill. We can't even get control of the NAACP. This is our largest organization, and we can't even get control of it. We cannot even hire and keep the executive director of the NAACP. And this is no surprise.
All right.
I don't know whether you're too young to remember or not, but I certainly remember when Julian Bond wanted Roy Wilkins' job and couldn't get it because of his position on Israel. Look at the African Americans chosen by President Clinton. Ask yourself if they represent you.
No.
Who recommended these folks?
All right.
What group? I don't think African Americans did it.
That's right.
See, black people still don't get it.
All right.
We look at these black people on TV and we say, oh, President Clinton, he got a black man. Tell him, yeah, but who picked him?
That's right.
Whom does he represent? Every group, through the pooling of its own resources, lifts itself up out of poverty. If you're waiting for Bill Clinton to lift you out of poverty, you still don't get it. You really don't get it. If you're waiting for the Black Caucus to lift you out of poverty, you don't get it. You still don't get it. Every group, through the pooling of its own resources, lifts itself up out of poverty. We keep expecting some other group to do it for us. It's never going to happen. We keep expecting some other group to do it for us. It's never going to happen. We keep expecting some other group to do it for us. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Black people don't get it. No one's going to help us but us. We've been telling you guys the Warrior class, and let's make this clear. We the Warrior class, the grassroots, we the male and female that are trying to push back, we the male and female that are trying to get you guys educated or aware, we the male and female that are trying to let you know the reinterpretation of the code, we the male and female that are trying to give you the codex, we the male and female that are trying to give you the simplest way to understand this. We have been telling you guys for decades what time it is. What time is it? Whose world is it? It's not us, 5%ers. It's you 85%ers. It's you 85%ers. And it's you 1%ers. Because you 85%ers are, as they say, dumb, deaf, and blind. You 1%ers, you guys move for economics. Male and female, that sector move for economics. So they know what's going on, but in their mind, as long as they have the money, they're good. They will contribute financially, but you won't hear them make a peep. You will not hear them show up. You will not hear them show out, see them show out. So they're quiet. They do contributions. The largest paradigm is the best attribute is always going to be those that have the economics. That's the best because nothing moves without the economics. So the 5%ers are still needed because we're the go-between between the 85 and the 1%. What am I saying? You guys have had all of the warning signs. All. You guys have had all of the I told you so's. All. If you didn't want to follow the instructions of this man, you could have followed the instructions of that female. If you didn't want to follow the instructions of this particular group, you could have followed the instructions of another individual group. And the only real reason why we're going around in circles is because the 85% is not necessarily afraid of WSR. It's less to do with fear as much as it's more to do with comfortable. This current system gives them what they need, what they want, what they desire. You take an alcoholic and he or she has been told, if you keep drinking this alcohol, your life will come to an end. They're not going to put it down. The alcohol is too addictive. In my system, alcohol wouldn't even be around because I don't want anything in my system that would interfere with my normal mental faculties. So when I speak that, I'm not really just saying like perfection is going to be a place where we don't have any of those things. I'm speaking in a term where you can't get it out of the system because it's already in the system. And I'm not going to make up no make-believe pretend type of system. I'm saying when it's time for the 85% to get rid of their habits, when it's time for them to manage it better, when it's time for us just to do things that serves our best interest, we need to be able to move in a manner in which it yields the best result. So alcohol really wouldn't be alcohol, marijuana, drugs, cocaine, whatever you want to call it. I really wouldn't need a need for it because we would be busy doing other things. These things are like, and I would try to find other medicines that will, I guess, let's say, in the medical purposes for pain, follow me? But using these things for recreational use, nah, I'm good. We already been there, done that. So we know that when you use those things, you become addictive, and then the next thing you know, you would rather be high or rather be drunk than work. You would rather be high or drunk than going competing. So I wouldn't have things in the environment that will hurt the environment. Even if it's an animal, if that animal is going to hurt the environment, remove that animal from that environment. You know, like the national wildlife. If something is interfering with something with the ecosystem, they'll go in and they'll remove it. Well, alcohol, drugs, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, it's messing with our ecosystem. So I would get rid of it. What I was really wanting you guys to get at without all these examples, without all these words, is nobody's going to help us but us. You guys are seeing how the continental Africans have been speaking against and moving against and teaching their children not to really mess with Black Americans. You are also seeing all over the internet, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, where Caribbean blacks are also moving against foundational Black Americans. All this nonsense of unity, all this nonsense of Pan-Africanism, all this nonsense of a coalition, foundational Black Americans, descendants of slaves that were in America, Black Americans. You don't have any help. All you got is us. And it's time that we start to get back to us, because we didn't need the Caribbeans to come up out of chattel slavery. We didn't need the Caribbeans to come, we didn't need the Hispanics or the continental Africans to come up out of slavery, chattel slavery. We didn't need any of these people groups, Black and brown coalitions. We didn't need them in the period of Reconstruction. We didn't need them when we were running north and south to get jobs. We didn't need them. The only real reason why we think that we need them now is because when the boomers came along, they came up under the idea that if we are all suffering, then we should all team up together to go against the system. That idea has not worked in 70 years. Because what other people groups decided to do was decided to piggyback off of Black American progress. And when they saw that Black America's progress was going to yield something that they were in favor of, they said, well, let's hide up under them. And as soon as they start doling out resources, we're going to take the majority of the share and split from the Black Panther Party or from the Black Liberation Army. We're going to, whatever term you want to give it, we're going to split from helping Black people. Africans did it, Jamaicans did it, Caribbeans did it, whites did it, Asians did it. All of them came up under us as refuge. Then when the United States government said, well, we're going to have to share this power, they all took their portion, left us with nothing. What they left, let me be clear so you guys can hear what I'm saying. I'm going to try to wrap this up. What they decided to give to the Black American community, they left you with sports, entertainment, and crime. All other people groups decided to take law, decided to take science, decided to take math, decided to take education, decided to take skilled laborers. decided to take grocery stores, supermarkets, club ownerships. What they decided to give the foundational Black Americans is participation sector, which means you can participate as long as there's money rolling. You cannot pass that money down. So when those entertainers, sports, athletes, and actors do whatever they do, a lot of times that money can't be passed down because the way that they structured the contract, kids ain't getting it. Or they structure those deals to where the actors and actresses, they make a lot of money, but they're not able to pass it down because the way that the contract is structured, they owe. So even though they're getting royalties, even though they're getting that, they're not getting the money that a 9-to-5 would get. They just get their money quicker. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but let's just keep it simple. We've been acting for 100 years. So if we've been acting for 100 years and we came through the Black exploitation and the 80s, our community should have money based on acting alone. Our community should have sports based on sports alone. Even though I may not be an athlete or an actor, there's enough of us that have been acting and been sportsing, and if that's where we're getting our money from, those cousins of ours should have invested in our car shops, since we're always at the car shop. Those cousins of ours, those brothers of ours, should have given us money to where we can invest into a rim shop, car audio. There's enough money in our community to where the community should be okay, because your sports arena, your acting arena gives us the money that we need. So you got to put one and one together. Why aren't we better off economically? Because there's clauses within those contracts that basically say you can't do that. Now, if you keep it on a one-on-one basis and your kids, maybe you'll get a chance. Maybe you have a shot. But going past your children like the grandchildren is less likely. So what I'm saying is what they decided to give us was the criminal element. They decided to give blacks the criminal element, Black Americans. And they decided to give blacks your sports, your all forms of entertainment. You can't pass that money down. We need to move forward. We need to get off this stupid shit and move forward. Warrior class, Zoo, rise up. Warrior class, Zoo, speak up. Warrior class, Zoo, show up. Warrior class, Zoo, smoke them out. Peace, blessings, and black love.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? In this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Fair Use Act disclaimer. This site is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research.